Alright, and welcome to this lesson where we're going to continue on developing the events page. So continuing on from where we last left off, we were currently styling the header, and now what we need to do is take a look at styling the header 2 right here, because if you take a look at the markup, you'll notice the header 2 is effectively the title. Now I'm not going to bother copying this class because this class name is longer than this class name, so I'm just going to stick with fc-header, and then I'm going to look inside of there for a header 2 element. And then what I can do is simply style this up. So first of all, I want to get the text aligned in the center. Then also we want to change the font size to be something like 16 pixels. And then also I'm going to change the font weight to normal. That way our font is not going to be bold. So now that we've styled up this header 2, let's take a look at styling up the next and previous buttons. So if we actually take a look at this now, what we can do is very quickly look at the markup. So we have the left and right section, and so I want to style up those two TD elements right here, or those two sections, and put some general styling on there. And then I want to focus on the buttons specifically, and when I say button, you typically assume that with an anchor, but you can see here that this is in fact the span element. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take a look at copying that class name, and I can see we have left, center and right, so we just want to focus on the left and the right section that contain our next and previous buttons. And so then what I can do is target the left section and then also the right section as well. And then what I can do is set the width to 60 pixels because we don't really want this to sort of start resizing, because otherwise you're not going to have an even spacing with your buttons right here from the left and the right edge. So that's why I'm setting the width to 60 pixels. I'm going to set the text alignment in the center because obviously that's a little bit larger than the buttons, and the buttons need to be away from the edges. And then also we have the font size, which is going to be a modest 20 pixels. And once I've done that, let's go ahead and save this now, hit refresh. And then the next thing I need to do is take a look at actually styling up the span elements themselves. So again, the style is going to be very generic, so that means I can apply this style to both of those elements. So now let's take a look at those elements. You can see the span right here has class FC button, and of course that is something that's too generic. That could mean any button, and I don't really want to conflict with any other button, just in case I might want to add a button in there later on. So we need to choose something that's fairly specific. So we have FC button prev, and also you have FC button next. And so what I can do is target both of those two classes, and no, I'm only going to affect those two particular elements. And so let's go ahead and put that in just like so, and change prev to next. Once I've done that, I can change the font family to Liger, of course, so then we get those nice arrows that you see in the Photoshop version. And then also we can change the cursor to a pointer, because typically when you associate with a button you will get your pointer cursor like so, but at the moment you'll just get your text cursor. So we need to manipulate that with CSS. So we say cursor pointer, and then also what I want to do is when I hover over the particular elements in question, I want them to actually change their font color. So I just want to create a nice transition so we have a nice animation with the actual font color. So I'm going to say transition color, and then what we're going to do is set it to transition in 0.3 of a second, or 300 milliseconds. And so if I save that now and we just hit refresh, you'll notice that we do get the pointer, but now we need to look at the actual hover state. Now this is very different for a span, because if I actually hover over it, you'll notice that there is a change, and this change doesn't actually reflect in what we have here, because when I hover over it, you'll notice we get the fc-state-hover class. So I need to target that class and then again change the font color, and also we need to make sure the cursor stays as a pointer. So let's copy this selector and say, well, if these two elements has another class, which is fc-state-hover. And so if the element has both of those classes, we then want to apply these styles. So again, the cursor is going to need to be a pointer, otherwise it will go back to the text cursor, and also the color is going to need to be red. And so now I can just save that, hit refresh, and when you hover over it, there you go, you get the nice red color. So that's the header done with. Now we need to actually focus on the main content section. So let's go ahead and collapse that, and then we want to open up the FC content section. And so what I can do immediately right off the bat is copy out that class, and then I want to go to events.scss. So firstly what I'm going to do is target that class, and then I'm just going to put on a box shadow, because if you actually take a look at the Photoshop version, you'll notice that we do have a little bit of a shadow all the way round this full calendar, sort of to help it pop off the page a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're just going to use the mixins right here, which is going to be box shadow, and it's going to be -1 pixel on the X, -1 pixel on the Y, 3 pixels blur, and then we're going to set the RGBA color value, and it's going to be black at 0.2 or 20% alpha transparent. And the reason why we've gone with a negative value is because we want the shadow to the left and to the top right here. So if I hit refresh, now you'll notice because they're negative, that's what we have right here. So right now what I want to do is get rid of all the padding and the margins that could be applied to the child elements. And that way we know that we're not going to get any spacing anomalies and so forth. So how are we actually going to do this? Well, what I want to do is target all the child elements of the element with the class FC-content. So let's copy that class, and right here you can see we've already got a selector that's targeting the parent and then targeting all the child elements, and we effectively want to do the same thing but for FC content. So we put a space in there, put the asterisk, and we have the margin and we have the padding, and just for good measure let's say border collapse as well. So this will get rid of any borders that we don't want, so I'm just going to say collapse, just like so. So there's no border widths and so forth. So hit refresh, and now you'll notice that all of the sort of little minute spacings have gone. Now what we can do is focus on this row right here, which is the top row, and you can see here that we've got this styled up sort of a yellow color and so forth. And what we need to do is look at the DOM structure first of all. So you'll notice we have FC content, and inside of there we've got the main table. So the table consists of all the names of the days and then all the dates as well. And if we drop that down, you'll notice that we have the T-head, or the table header, and that contains all of the day names. So what I want to do now is take a look at styling that up, and don't forget that when we start the T-header, that's also going to adapt to the week view and also the day view as well. So what I want to do now is go to the SCSS file, we're going to target that class, and then we're simply going to target the T-head element. And now what we can do is set the line height to 40 pixels. So again, that's actually going to determine the height of the table header and also align the text vertically in the center. We want to set the font size to be something like 12 pixels. Then also what we want to do is change the background color to yellow. And then also what we can do is change the font color to text 1, which is going to be the brown text color. So if I save that now, we can just simply hit refresh, and there we go, our table header is now styled. Now the next thing we need to do is focus on the dates and get those styled up. So if you look at the markup, you'll be able to see that we've already styled the table header, which is effectively the top row, and then after that we have the table body, and the table body contains all of the individual dates, and the TD represents that specific date. So what I need to do is target each individual TD and get them styled up. So let's first of all switch over to our SCSS file, and then below there what I want to do is target the class FC-content and then target all the TD elements. And then what I can do is set the border left to 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be a custom color. It's going to be very light, and it's going to be EEE, just like so. And then what I want to do is also set the border bottom to be the same, and then what I want to do is set the vertical alignment to the top, because you'll notice that this column right here has the dates higher than all the others. So the reason why that is because again we've not set that vertical alignment, and we can have that staggering that's happening. So obviously once I set the vertical alignment to the top, you will notice that that will no longer happen. So if I save this now and we just hit refresh, you'll notice we get that nice 1 pixel border, and also we get the dates aligning to the top. Alright, so now that we've done that, I want to focus on the actual number right here and get that styled up. So if we look at that, inside of the TD, we have the div element with the class of FC day number. So let's go ahead and target that class. And then what I can do is set a bit of padding on here. So we're going to say 10 pixels for all edges. So it's just going to push it away from the edges. Then we're going to set the color to text 3, which is going to be the gray text color. And then after that, I want to also set the font size to be 14 pixels. And once I've done that, we can then just save this and hit refresh. And so now this is looking a lot better. But there are some dates that don't actually involve this current month. So for example, you have February. Well, the start of February doesn't start with 26. And so of course, this is why we need to look at dates that belong to other months. They're just filler dates effectively. So let's take a look at the markup and see if we can identify any classes that refer to another month. Well, you can see here we have FC-other-month because this is the first TD and it says 26 right here. So we know that this belongs to another month. So therefore, we're going to copy this out and paste that in just like so. And then what we're going to do is target the element that's nested inside of there, which is FC-day-number, because don't forget that is the main TD element right there, and then inside of there you got FC-day-number. And then of course you can change the color. So I'm just going to say color, and we're going to make this a lighter gray, so it's going to be DDD, and save that. Hit refresh, and now you'll notice that those dates are sort of grayed out quite a lot more, and we can clearly see the dates of the current month. So now that we've started up the full calendar, the next thing I want to do is apply the events to the calendar. And of course, we're going to do this through a JSON file. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, take a look at the projects directory, and inside of there we have the JSON directory. Now you're able to see here that what we have is the PHP file extension. We do not have the JSON file extension, and it's for one very good reason. PHP hasn't got limitations in Internet Explorer 8 when you load it in through JavaScript. However, Internet Explorer 8 is very, very particular with loading in JSON files. Also, you will more than likely be loading in a PHP file dynamically, because typically a PHP file will connect to the database, extract the data, and then of course display the JSON output. And so that's why you would normally be connecting to a PHP file. So now what I want to do is give you a quick rundown of the data that's inside of here. So with this PHP file, all you get to see is the JSON. So effectively, I'm just delivering the output through the PHP file, but there is no PHP inside of here. So what you can see right now is the JSON. And so what it's wrapped up in is these square brackets, which indicates an array. Then inside of the array, you have your nodes, which is wrapped up in the curly brackets, and then you have a comma that separates out each individual node. Inside of the node you have a property and a value that relates to that node. And just to clarify, the menu and value property and also the description and value property have nothing to do with the full calendar plugin. Those two properties and values are only for the left-hand side navigational menu. So we'll cover over those properties and what they mean later on when we have to produce the code for the left-hand side navigation. In our case, all the other properties do involve the full calendar plugin. So for example, every event must have a title, and the title is displayed to the user. Every event must have, of course, a start date, and also you can go into the time as well, but we're not going to be worried about the time. We're just going to be focused on the days, so that if an event is on a certain day, it takes up the entire day. Now the start property is required, but also optionally you have the end property. So what this allows you to do is extend the event over multiple days. Then you have the URL, which is optional, and the URL just simply allows you to turn your event into a button, and when you click on it, it will take you to the URL. In our case, it's the event page that will give you the specifics of that event. And also you have the ID property and value, which again is optional, and what this allows you to do is group events together. So for example, this repeating event, you'll notice I can move it and they both move in sync. So thank you for joining me in this lesson, and please join me in the next lesson where we'll continue on developing the events page.